Alright guys, such Kremp again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. With all the roster questions continuing going into the Esports World Cup, Zinni responds to all the Mercules speculation that's unfolded over the last few weeks. And Mercules came into the team instead of Skyz. It was a controversial move, especially internally in the team. But Methodz explains exactly how it happens, the mechanics of it behind the scenes, and what he said to effectively get Skyz dropped on the roster by giving his opinion on the matter. In hindsight, of course, it worked out potentially for all parties, and Mercules is seemingly going to be a key piece of this OpTic roster for a very long time to come. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I greatly appreciate it. Here's Xnid with his new SMG duo, and not the sub duo that I expected really at the start of the season. But yeah, we've got Pred and Tej playing for the Falcons at the World Cup. So certainly one of the teams of all time. They've got Xnid on the flex, and they've got aBeZy as the main. Are they any good? Are they going to be any good? I guess we'll see. They may have a friendlier group now that Ravens have been kicked out of the tournament, but we'll see if that actually does transpire when the groups in due course are officially confirmed. But that's your SMG duo on the Falcons. I imagine the team is probably going to look rather different going into next season, but it's a good opportunity for these guys regardless. This was a very interesting development as well. Like we talked about this yesterday, Cellium's 29 streak. Now, we talked about Cell, some of the criticism of his play, and these other factors as we know. Cellium has 29 events in a row with a 1 or a higher KD. HyDra has, I think, 27 in a row, which is, in my opinion, more impressive on the SMG. You guys know what we're getting at there. But Cellium's KDs look like this. So since Cold War Major 1, 1.2, and if you look at all of these events, 29 is pretty impressive because nowadays, Scump got to nearly 50, right? Scump, I think his record was 48, 49. So Scump had a tournament, he had 48 tournaments in a row with a 1 or more, and then he had one tournament with like literally a 0.99. I actually think he had like, it might be a 1.00 if you round it, but I think technically he had like one less kill than he had death, so you can't really round it. And then he had like another handful of tournaments after that with still a 1+ KD. So some people consider Scump's streak to be in the low 50s, but the record really from Scump is around about 48, I think. Cellium's at 29. But obviously in Scump's day, there were more tournaments. So for Cell to be at 29, it is a lot of tournaments. I think HyDra's run is basically his whole career, right? Like, I gotta imagine it's basically HyDra's entire career since he came in. So for Cellium, yeah, Cold War, Major 1 champs, Major 1 champs, as you guys can see, the run through here. But the stat that's especially remarkable, really, is going back to Major 4 in Modern Warfare 2, he had a 1.06. Since then, I mean, even before that, look at the events that he's had less than a 1.1. And like, this is simultaneously incredibly impressive, but also questionable, right? As we talked about yesterday. Not questionable in terms of his legitimacy, but more in terms of the impact, right? Like, it's always a conversation, and it's not Cellium's fault precisely. We talked about the team wanting him to play a certain way, but it's like, over these 29 tournaments, he's had none in the negative, and his lowest KD was a 1.06. His second lowest was a 1.07. And then, I mean, look at that, 1.12, 1.24, 1.43, 1.32, like, it's just absurd. And even since his Major 4 run, like, it's absurdly impressive, really. Like, 1.33, 1.43, 1.29, 11, 14, 14, 11, 38. I mean, 1130. And this season it's been a little lower, but like, he's not had an event lower than a 1.1 in the last 13, right? So like, I thought that was a very interesting add-on, right? It's like, okay, yes, Cell's had a 29 tournament streak with a positive KD, but he actually has a 1.1 or more, which is like far higher than basically anyone in the league averages, and he's had that 13 times in a row, so it's pretty remarkable, to be honest. We'll see if that can continue, of course, when they get to the World Cup in a couple of weeks' time. But let's talk about Zinni and what he had to say, because he's been talking an awful lot, and to be fair, for very good reason. Black Ops 6, was it the easiest COD ever? It's an interesting question, to be fair, the way that it plays. I know that this has created a little bit of a discussion. We talked about it earlier today about Huke, right? And whether, if Simp is available, you do it, you drop Huke, you bring in Simp, like what that potentially would look like for the team. But the fact of the matter is, Huke played so much better this season than he has done previously. I think he leveled up his game a lot. And so much credit belongs to Huke for recognizing, look, he was dropped numerous times. By OpTic, by Surge even, right? Like at the end of last season, they dropped Huke. Surge got rid of Huke. And he started the year in challenges. understandably, Huke could have been like, damn, these guys keep dropping me. Like, I'm Huke, right? Like, I'm godlike. I shoot so straight, one of the most talented players we've ever seen in COD. And that's all true. But Huke actually sat down and recognized, okay, yeah, I do have some weaknesses in my game that are causing this to happen, and I need to get on top of it. My comms need to be better, my decision-making needs to be better, and Huke worked hard on those things, and this season, especially with OpTic, was an incredibly accomplished player in every single facet, and really leveled up, I think, this year. And if he hadn't have done, I think it could have been a very different story for this OpTic team. Now, some are saying, well, was this game just easier to play, right? Because of the way that the game is designed, the movement with tactical sprints maybe lowers the skill gap to some degree, but maybe the way that the hills and the hard points are designed is slightly easier. I don't really, buy that argument necessarily that Huke couldn't be just as good at next year's game with the progress that he's made, but it's certainly a talking point given the discussion around Black Ops 6 as a title right now. But Huke was on the team that won the World Championship, but the key feature really was Mercules joining, as we know. And if Mercules wasn't discovered, and obviously was massively helped by the Beans visa situation, because while Mercules was a notable player, and was certainly a player that we talked about relatively frequently on the channel from the Challengers perspective, honestly, the main reason I talked about Merc, I saw him having good numbers, but the main reason I talked about him is because I liked his game attack. I was like, this kid's game attack sounds like... It sounds good. It sounds like he sounds like a player. That's my opinion, and that's honestly one of the reasons why I used to talk about Mercules probably more than other players when we talked about Challenger stuff on the channel as being a prospect, was just because he sounded like he was going to be good. I don't know how else to say it. So anyway, Merc eventually joins the team. They discovered him primarily because he replaced Beans after the visa drama that happened back at Major 3. But we know that at that time, OpTic were going through complete chaos. They just picked up Skyz. I mean, it was Major 2. I remember being out there in Dallas at Major 2 and hearing these rumors that Kenny and Pred were about to get dropped and they were about to, re-pick up. Basically, Huke was going to come back in, and then it was going to be Skyz coming in instead of Kenny. And I can understand some of the logic there, but I still kind of feel like they needed to make a change for Kenny. They needed to find somebody who could replace him, and Skyz, was good friends with them. It just made some sense, right? Like, it was kind of a change out of necessity rather than necessarily the best thing to do. Now, what Zinni reveals, which is very interesting, is that having spotted Mercules and the team even themselves, Karma, JP, like they knew Mercules was a serious talent and somebody they should be looking at. And they'd done it with Ghosty a couple of years before, picking up a rookie. And actually it improved their team. It brought them great success. So it seemed to Methodz like an absolute no-brainer. It's like, look, this kid's clearly really good. We need a player in that role right now. Absolutely we do. Why are we not making this move? Yeah, Shotzzy didn't want to make a change because he was fed up of making changes and felt like they maybe could show some promise, but they were never going to be good. I think if they kept Skyz, it was like, okay, maybe we can be better with Skyz than we were with Kenny, but it wasn't an ambitious decision, right? Like, with Skyz, they were capped. Like, let's be real. Their ceiling would have been capped. They would never have been able to win the World Championship with that roster that they had, in my opinion. And Zinni felt the same way. He's like, look, this is an obvious decision, so why aren't we doing it? He let his opinion be known, and then the rest all slotted into place.
2 kills.
Wait, hold on. Wait, hold on. Yeah, you actually kind of owe me, low-key. We never had this convo, but...
What?
You might owe me, yeah? You're about to spawn in with Bueno.
Yo, that is crazy. What?
That
is crazy.
I'm just kidding. That's only because he embarrassed
me.
Wow,
man.
Oh,
thank God we made a change, bro. Thank fucking God, dude. Thank fucking God, bro. Wow. I hate watching the fucking maze.
That fucking 1v1, bro.
Come here.
Of how much of a role Zen had to play.
I know. I assume. Apparently it was a big role.
Play it down. Play it down.
I don't know.
Hopefully he never sees this, but I think, from what I've heard, that it was a really big role.
I don't know the exact.
I believe that.
I kind of feel like an asshole. I don't know when we're talking about this because I love Caesar. Like I actually like, bro. Despite him fucking embarrassing me in that 1v1, Caesar is like one of the nicest. Like I fucking love Caesar, but I thought the team was terrible. And I didn't think him in the flex role made sense. So I was just honest. That's all I was honest. I said, Hector, we have to make this fucking change. I'm mind blown. When I heard that they weren't making a change, I was appalled. I'll never forget it. I was standing by the basketball thing where you shoot hoops. Hector was standing by the podcast couches. There were a bunch of us standing around, and I thought they were trolling me. I was like, what do you mean they're not changing? And they're like, they don't want to change. And I was like, no, they have to change. Like, we have to get Mercules. Like, this would be absurd. Then I started texting Shotzzy, and I was like, yo, listen, I don't know what the hell's going through your head, but this is a no-brainer. Like, I understand their perspective. Like, you know, they've been through so many roster changes. They didn't want to change anymore. But this was like a different type of roster change. Like, it's one of those where, like, the way I thought about it, and I've never done this with the team before in my life. Like, I've never imposed my opinion, I guess, in a big way. But I was like, this is a player that you miss out on, and we all sit here and we sit in a circle, and we're like, what the fuck? We could have had this kid, is the way I was bringing it to the group. But the only thing I did was give my opinion. And I talked to Hector, I talked to Ant, and then the rest is history. Like, I don't listen, I don't make decisions. I don't actually, right? I don't have any type of control, or the only thing I did was say what I thought, really. And luckily, I think the rest is history.
So it's kind of unfortunate for Skyz how it all worked out, but it's certainly not the end of the world. Got to be part of OpTic for a little bit, do a bit of streaming, right? Like, take advantage of the opportunities. We'll see if Skyz is back next year in exactly what fashion. But yeah, things could have been very different. And had Methodz, to my understanding, had Methodz not stepped in when he did, this would have looked very different, because Mercules had a compelling offer from Cloud9. Now, the Toronto offer was not especially compelling. They, as far as I'm aware, they were like, look, we'll give you an offer to stay on the bench. I don't really think Mercules was too tempted by that, although, look, at the end of the day, when you've come from challenges and you've been kind of unknown for a little bit of time playing with the Stallions, and then all of a sudden somebody's offering you, 50 racks for the year, 100 racks for the year, whatever, all of a sudden it's like, damn, I could actually prove to my family, to everyone, that this is actually worth it and I've got what it takes. So Toronto's offer maybe wasn't that compelling. Cloud9's offer was also unlikely very compelling when you look at the details. It's just the way that Cloud9's contracts, they would have wanted to lock him in for a long time. I understand that the money from the Cloud9 deal was actually pretty good, like pretty compelling. Maybe it was 6 figures. It was around that kind of ballpark anyway. Like, it was a compelling offer from Cloud9, to my understanding, to bring him into their team instead. But it would have been, like, you're going to sign this deal, we're going to have you in prison, basically, right? So that was the Cloud9 offer. But it was not something that was impossible by any means. I genuinely think that had Methodz not got involved, had Methodz not forced OpTic to start having those conversations, within the next couple of days, it's very plausible that Mercules takes the C9 off. Because if you're Mercules, right, like, what are you doing? People are probably telling you, like, hey, OpTic are probably going to come looking for you at some point. You might want to hold off here, because it would make sense for OpTic to have the conversation. But then if that doesn't happen and Cloud9 are giving you an offer which is, can allow you to play for the rest of the season, make a load of money, for the first time ever really in your life, it's very difficult to say no to that. So yeah, I think Methodz deserves a lot of credit for this, because I think had he not stepped in when he did and said what he said and introduced people in various ways and started to have conversations, I think this season could have looked very, very different indeed. And the future of COD would potentially have looked very, very different as well. So very much on Twitter your thoughts on all of this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care. And I'll see you next time.